Good evening and welcome to Psychology News Network. Tonight we are hosting a special on the Tuskegee syphilis study. Our first segment tonight will be with Dr. Eugene Dibble, who is the head of the study. He is a doctor at the John Andrews Memorial Hospital and also collaborated with the Tuskegee Institute on this study.
Today with Dr. Eugene Dibble, Jr. Hello there. Can you give us a little bit of background information on yourself, please?
Absolutely. I am the head of the John Andrews Hospital at Tuskegee Institute, and I was responsible for spearheading this study. I convinced President Morton that it would be in the interest of the Institute to partake in this collaboration. It would be of great scientific and clinical value.
Wonderful. And what were the factors that led you into wanting to do this study?
Well, there had been a previous set of studies funded by the Julius Rosenwald Foundation that found that there was a prevalence of syphilis in the Afro-American population throughout Mississippi. 1928, the results of this study confirmed that the prevalence was quite high and that it demanded an immediate public health response. So 5 counties were selected to target in the further investigation and treatment of syphilis in African Americans.
And what exactly were you looking for? What were the symptoms you were looking for in these patients?
Syphilis is a pernicious disease. It's a bacterial infection, and the early stages can be latent and undiagnosed. Initially, people present with fever and swollen lymph nodes, and in many cases, these will progress to unobservable signs, only to reemerge months and up to years later. There's widespread neurological, spinal cord dysfunction, motor impairments, meningitis, fever, dysarthria, inability to speak, and disaffectations of the vocal musculature, ultimately leading to cause of death from meningitis infection or liver failure, failure of various organs. So it's ultimately deadly disease.
All right. So now looking back on this study, do you believe there are any negative connotations to it?
Oh, absolutely not. No, this study had great scientific value. See, at the time of this study, what you have to understand is at the time of this study, there had been a report from a physician, Busmagard, in Oslo, and he had found some findings that were contradictory to what we knew in the United States. See, we knew in white people that syphilis had profound neurological impairments. And in African Americans, it largely presented as cardiovascular symptoms. Busmagard, his data contradicted that and said that he ended up saying in his paper that white people also had cardiovascular symptomologies resulting from infection. So what we thought we would do is be able to trace that down and empirically identify through a prospective study, moving forward from incipient detection of the disease to terminal endpoint, to determine was there neurological and or cardiovascular impairment or dysfunctions in African Americans. So this had great scientific potential for us to learn quite a bit about the disease. Coupling that with the unfortunate onset of the Great Depression, the funding was no longer available to treat everyone enrolled in the study. So, taking the opportunity to do a thorough scientific analysis, we decided to do an experiment and control group. We enrolled 399 individuals into the treatment group to receive treatment, and we maintained 201 controls as a matter of scientific merit.
Up next, we have an interview with Eunice Rivers, who is a nurse hired by the Public Health Service to attract men into the study and keep them into the study long term.
I was hired by the researchers of the Tuskegee University and the U.S. Public Health Service to be the primary contact in Macomb County. I provided transportation, organized appointments, reassured the participants, and formed trusting relationships with the men and their families. The university and the PHS physicians targeted African American men in Macomb County because these individuals were in poverty and had almost no access to health care. A colleague, Dr. Frost, stated, as a group, they were susceptible to kindness. The PHS physicians and myself translated medical terms into local language because we believed these men would not understand clinical terms. There was not even an attempt to educate them about syphilis. Burial stipends were used to gain consent from family members for autopsies on study participants who died as one of the many incentives. There was no proper explanation of the risks, the benefits, or the purpose of the study.
Coming up after the break, we have an interview with Chloe and Crystal, who are two researchers on the Tuskegee study, discussing the pros and cons in their view.
Have you suffered from an ear infection, a sinus infection, ammonia, or other serious infections? Then you need penicillin. Side effects include diarrhea, dizziness, heartburn, headache, insomnia, nausea, vomiting, bleeding, skin rash. Do not use this medication if you're allergic to penicillin V or any other penicillin antibiotics. Tell your doctor if you have asthma, kidney disease, a bleeding or blood clotting disorder, a history of diarrhea caused by antibiotics, or a history of any allergy.
What about respect for the person?
That's a good one. But didn't they do a lot of painful procedures and stuff on them?
Oh, they did. What else could there be that would be ethical?
Hey girls, what are you working on?
Trying to find ethical standards in the Tuskegee syphilis study.
Well, it just so happens I just went through the Belmont report from the Institution Review Board, and they identified 3 key principles: respect for persons, beneficence, and justice. What else? Was there any of those involved?
Enforce ethical principles. Become a member of the Institutional Review Board today.
Coming soon to theaters.
We'll be just studying them.
Girl, I've been studying. I know all
We've
about
been
these fellas.
treating them. We'll just be studying them.
No treatment?
Not for syphilis.
Why?
Well, the study will bring the money for treatment. In about 6 months to a year.
Well, what do we tell them? I mean, what do we do?
Nothing.
Well, I don't understand. We've been giving them the mercury rubs, and we just don't do that?
Well, we'll continue with the rubs, but we'll be using liniment instead of mercury. They won't know the difference. And with the additional money, we'll give them aspirin and tonic and vitamins, things they've never had before. I guarantee you they'll feel much, much better.
Until they don't.
I don't think you heard me. It won't be forever.
Just 6 months.
Or a year.
And they be first in line for the treatment.
I promise you. All right, young fella. This is gonna kill the germs that are making you sick. You believe me? Well, you better believe me. I'm the doctor. Right, Nurse Evers?
Yes, doctor.
Here with us today, we have Chloe and Crystal, who will be debating the Tuskegee syphilis study. We have Chloe here, who is for the study. Chloe, can you give us your reason why, please?
Well, when the study began, there was actually no cure for syphilis. They would treat it with mercury rubs, and they would either cause adverse reactions in patients or not cure syphilis at all. So the study really needed to be done to find a cure.
All right, and Crystal, you are against this study. Can you give us your reason why, please?
Yes, well, when the study started, it was supposed to last 6 to 9 months, but instead it lasted for 40 years. It was to see the effects of syphilis and find treatment, but that didn't happen.
So, Chloe, Crystal mentioned that this study was intended to look at the effects of syphilis in these patients. Being for the study, can you tell us exactly what you were looking for?
Well, we were mostly looking for the long-term effects that syphilis would have on our patients, and we gave them compensation for their time, and we provided them with free burial services for patients who didn't make it through.
So what were the specific symptoms that you were looking for in these patients, though?
Well, with Caucasians, we were looking for neurological issues, and in African Americans, it presented itself more like cardiovascular issues.
Okay. And Crystal, going against that, I'm sure you have some point to say.
Yeah, these men received painful procedures like spinal taps to treat the bad blood, as they were told they had, when in reality they were being checked for syphilis. Also, when a treatment became available, that information was withheld.
Chloe, Crystal mentioned that these patients received painful medical procedures like spinal taps. Can you explain to us exactly what benefits these subjects were receiving throughout this study?
Well, basically throughout the study we gave them access to physical examinations, we gave them free food, transportation. Like I said before, we gave them access to free burial services, which in turn allowed us to autopsy their bodies and gain more information on the disease.
But many patients died as a result of the study. They were just told that they had bad blood. They didn't even know what that meant. They were never informed that the disease was contagious and that it could be sexually transmitted. Also, that it could be transmitted from mother to fetus. This study was basically...
All right, Chloe, any final thoughts on tonight's subject?
Well, you know, the zeitgeist of the time really led us to believe that the disease affected Caucasians and African Americans in separate ways. And we wanted to study the long-term effects and find a treatment for it.
Crystal?
Well, I believe that what was done was very wrong and unethical. Wives lost their husbands and children lost their fathers as a consequence. Worst of all is that there was a cure that was never given or made known about. Even after it was available, it was never given to them. The participants thought they were being treated, but instead they were being used.
Thank you both for your time tonight. That concludes our segment on the Tuskegee Syphilis study. Tune in next week where we will be covering the Aversion Project on Psychology News Network.